the topic of this panel is forever games, most probably in mobile. Or do you disagree, guys? So I'm very happy that our colleague just introduced our friends here, because I would most definitely butcher at least two last names, mine included. Okay, but let's start maybe with the question: what forever games are actually? So the name implicates that it's actually a game that you play forever, at least forever. So maybe we can run through some definitions of you guys. Can we do that? And maybe let's start by with Maryna.
Hey guys. So for me, forever games was a surprise terminology, because I thought that free-to-play games are always forever games. So by free-to-play, I mean games that, players play for free, but then they purchase things inside the games, and usually they last for many, many, many years. So there is an end or decline point, but yeah, they are kind of forever games.
I mean, like forever games comes from making sure that you can keep the users as long as possible, yeah, because the longer you keep them, the easier actually to have kind of positive ROI, yeah? And that's I think making sure that you have a lot of elements that makes the people spend with you not just weeks but months, and that's why in those games we talk not about like day 2 or like day 7, but we talk about like day 30, day 90, even like day.
I think we will go into the KPIs in a moment. You have a lot of data, right?
Yeah, Clash Royale has a day 365 of 10%. That's a dream. I think forever games are the ones we turn into a hobby, and we can just stick to it. We're playing with a friend, and we play it because of the people playing it. And the game might not necessarily be held up, but we know all games which are there for a decade or more. My personal record is that a company in Germany operates the game for 25 years, profitable. It's the same game. That's a forever game, I think.
Yeah, I guess I'd say this is the game that is always on your phone, and it's like a never-ending story.
Good. Yeah, for me it's actually the same thing. So it's just getting stuff to do and meet friends. If you can call them friends, right? Okay, guys. So let's go through some questions we actually collected talking about this topic. So one of the first things, what do you think, guys, users value most in forever games? Let's maybe get it to Teut.
Me?
Yeah. Or do you want to do it always in a line?
No. What do they value? I mean, they want to get entertained for years, and that means that you have to slow things down without to annoy them. Meaning that you have to entertain them in different ways, like social entertainment. I'm meeting acquaintances and having fun with them. Events is pretty easy, but everybody's doing it, so they might get bored. But you have to expand the game, service the game. Here's the thing. For me, forever games is a new term, like you said. I didn't know they were called like that. But live operations is actually a very old thing. It was first mentioned and taught by Ultima Online back in 1987, 88. Yeah, and then that knowledge was forgotten when no one wanted to do MMOs anymore. And now mobile came and, hey, we have to learn how to live operate. And I'm pointing them to 20-year-old PowerPoints. So yeah, there are so many things we have to do in order to make a game last that long. And at some point, if you can claim, hey, these guys are actually playing the game since we launched, then you're kind of successful.
When you mentioned Ultima Online, is it still a blueprint for modern free-to-play and forever games? It wasn't free-to-play.
No, it wasn't free-to-play, but times changed, okay? So yes, but the core principles, what they taught us, including Asheron's Call, EverQuest, all the old ones, are still valid today. So if you dig out all the old presentations, there's a lot to learn about that.
True.
So.
I think maybe adding to that, I think like if you say value, yeah, usually value means something different for everyone. Yes, so it's like it's very subjective, which means that you have specific kind of subjective valuable thing, which usually it's kind of hard to do it in scale. Yes, so if you think about forever games, it's kind of trying to find this balance between going deep and going broad. Yes, so and those games that actually are able to combine both, like create this experience that is valuable for like very large of people, like in different way, making that personalized, making that focus on the specific techniques that are really valid for those specific of people, then we can say, okay, that is really the value in those games.
I was actually quite interested in Kate, your answer, because you have a game for a modern, young woman audience, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
okay.
Not only young. I mean, we all are young, but.
Yeah, right.
Can you? Yes.
Yes. So, what do you think your audience in a game that do I understand it right? It's more about dressing, being stylish in the game, right? And progressing on that
well, everyone
vertical?
has, I guess, like different needs to play. Some people like playing because they like fashion, they like styling outfits, they like brands and stuff. Some people play because, for example, there's their job and they keep portfolio in our game. Some people play because they wanna relax. Some people play because their friends are there. So there's a community aspect. So I would say there are like many different reasons for playing various games like ours. Like as you said, majority of the audience, female audience, various ages. However, yes, like emotions, reasons behind playing different.
Have you actually researched the topic, between male and female in context of your game? How on what people look at in your game?
On what people look at?
Yeah, what they value most,
Like brands, I would say.
Okay.
Yes, those items which are in the game, those items which are available in the game are real brands. So, for example, you may style a look with the Gucci brand, with Jimmy Choo brand, and all of those items are available on the market to make a real purchase. Mm-hmm. It's just the fact that they can style it before making the actual purchase.
Okay. Good. Maryna, maybe you can add something to that mix, because you have quite the opposite audience, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to talk about the Star Trek audience. I can say that what players value in forever games is that you're able to produce interesting content for them regularly. So regularly, it means every week, it means every 2 weeks. Different games, depending on the genre, do it differently. So if you're a match 3, it can be just producing more and more levels, and that will be enough. Like if you're Candy Crush, that is enough. They will never stop at that, of course, because as you said, live ops is crucial, although live ops is maybe something kind of a moment-to-moment engagement, and you still need to give them long-term goals. And this is where the secret sauce of every single game is different. So you need to make sure that your core loop is, you can expand it, you can add side loops into it, and that it all kind of lives long for many years, and you can build live ops on top of it.
Okay, can we just continue with the topic of should the game be more linear and have a lot of meta layers or verticals, or should it be more open-ended? By linear, I mean games like you mentioned Candy Crush. So you come into the game, you just play this one stage, you upgrade or buy something and come back to the game, to the core gameplay, or more open-ended with a lot of layers of doing something.
I mean, I guess for match 3s, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Although some are trying to do these kind of side progressions and other modes so the players can broaden a little bit their day-to-day routine. And I mean, again, it depends on the audience, because even between the match 3s, I worked in King at some point, and we saw that not all audience are the same. So their motivations are different between some games. But I think for games like RPGs, the linearity is more of a subjective topic, right? You will always have to build some kind of meta layers on top, and because that's the audience and that's what they're used to. So you need to understand kind of the past games that also do that, and build on top of it.
Okay, Mariusz?
I think really it's like the universe of games is really big, and I don't think there is like one single recipe for those games, especially like even from the data perspective. Yeah. So for example, like you very often let's kind of the proxy for understanding the value of the games, for example, retention. Yeah. And we know that, let's see, if you look at the top games in some genres, like, let's see, the, Match 3 or like, March or like Battle Royale, top games have even day-to retention up to 50% almost. And they 30 up to like, 15, up to 16%, yeah? But then on the other side, you have like other games where people actually can like play for a long time. Let's see 4X, where like they do at the ratio of 30% is extremely good result, but still, and they 30 would be around like 3-5%, but still the average revenue per user would be 5 times higher in 4X than in for example, like match 3 games. Yeah. So in this case, I think it really depends on how you define this value and to which specific audience do you want to go actually.
It also has to do with the cost of life operations, right? If it's very expensive to produce content, linearity is your death. If you have systematic content, you can reuse that to produce variations of the same content much cheaper, much faster to entertain your users. But even that has diminishing returns because the more you use something, the more normal it becomes, and you need to offer something new, different. As he said, there are different user types with different expectations and different things they like, and you have to serve as many as possible in order to attract a large audience, and that's hard. So for me, linear is very, very difficult, unless you have a tool pipeline which can create it like this. If you plan it from the beginning, you're fine, but otherwise you already lost your content war. So systematic is usually my answer. Open-ended is not like it. It has too many loose ends.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So our approach is that we have new content every single day. So we need to somehow meet the expectations of our players, because the game is actually based on the real life events as well. So for example, if there's a con event, if there's anything happening in the real world, that's also happening in our app. So we need to be on track with everything what's happening, since we have many things happening relating to the real life in the app, and that's basically what is asked for by our players.
I think even one more interesting aspect, yes. I will be talking about that a little bit tomorrow. But if you, for example, look at the top games, I just did small exercise. Yeah, just look at the top games, like by revenue. And actually, if I took like average, by average, actually, they were actually updated around 7 days ago. So that's how right now, how hard and actually how is this quality bar in terms of like delivering this new experience. It's not even that you have the games that are giving the content every day, but they have so substantial updating that content they can even republish that game. Yeah, so which means that I think this kind of this quality bar that actually goes for these like forever games is actually getting higher and higher. Yeah, because of course it's easy to say, okay, create new content, create like some meta game and some like some maybe like small gains inside, but like from reality perspective, it's actually adding a lot of complexity to create and actually maybe not even create but produce those games.
Yeah, it's very hard. I can actually tell it because we had a pipeline of almost releasing one game every week. It was in the hyper-casual time. Yeah, you can laugh. It's all right. No, it's like the craziest thing ever. It's like going above to do anything, to just have the content ready like a month prior to launch. This is crazy.
And quality assurance.
That's a different topic, not for today.
Subjective as well, yeah?
Exactly. Now in hyper-casual, sometimes it doesn't matter. It really depends on the game. But I would really like to hear about the one-day update cycle. Can you ask something?
What do you want to know?
How?
Well, like we are a great team. We know how to do stuff. We do them in the highest quality possible. So here's your answer.
Okay. Good. The team is big or like very much automated?
Like we are automated as well.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about re-engagement. So what would you say about new vectors in forever games or in free-to-play games?
Big one. Yeah, big one. Thank you. So actually, the re-engagement part is the part of my job here, and I support it with the CRM communication. And I think that there are many tools available for us to re-engage the player. So as you mentioned several times, live ops, for example, here, like we have limited time events, limited time content, new content drops, some seasonal activities. That's for the live ops, which keep the player or keep the game fresh and creates like the sense of the urgency. So it's like from my point of view, it's like, hey, there's a hot drop in the game, come and play, but like hurry up because there's only like 3 hours left. So this is how we re-engage in terms of the live ops. Later on, we have social interactions, like people love interacting with other players. We need to remember that there is a part that likes socializing, and there is a part of the players that doesn't like doing that. However, having social features, that's always some kind of a sense of belonging, some kind of a sense of community that we have in the game. Later on, we might have, what else do we have? We might have user-generated content. So actually our game is about creating the content, so players style the outfits, style avatars, and that gives a feeling of ownership. If you invested time in something, that means that you want to come back to the game and actually keep playing. Personalization either of the game, of the messaging, as that will be my task. So that makes the game relevant. If actually the game provides the items that you want because you prefer them, and you actually clearly stated at the beginning of the game probably that those are my preferences, and I tell you that, hey, maybe you want to use this item in the game, then definitely you're going to play that because that's relevant. There are some rewards, like if there's a successfully implemented reward system, like any daily rewards, any bonuses, randomly assigned gift boxes, or just gifts. That also gives like the feeling that you want to compete with others. Like with the social aspect, there's also the players like to compete among each other. So leaderboards or anything like that, that would do the job.
What do the players care more about? Or where do they re-engage more, about content that you produce as a company or in the user-created content? Or what's more interesting for them?
I think that there's like equal ratio. I mean, they like looking for other players, following other players, liking their styles, or even sometimes they reach out to us saying like, hey, this player actually copied me or something like that. So they really care about what other players are doing, but also they care about what's our input in the game.
Okay, cool. Teut, some more thoughts about re-engagement and vectors.
Well, in the early days of free-to-play, re-engaging players was far more expensive than actually getting new ones, so we didn't care. Okay. But then things changed, and re-engaging players became a valid model to actually, re-engage the users. So there's this, when they invested enough time and money, it's very hard to lose them unless you screw up. The fear of missing out. So you're doing things, and if they miss it, they might regret it. So they are logging in every day. But there's also this strange phenomenon that you're keeping players who log in, do their daily stuff, log out, and that's all they do for 1 or 2 years' time. Because
just collecting.
They're just collecting because they miss out. I might come back to this game. So the question is, how can you reactivate them with something they find attractive enough to re-engage the game they actually left on purpose? And the problem there is that if the longer you wait to do that, the more complex it is, because they might return to a game which is completely alien to them because what is this? I have no idea what this is now all about. And re-engaging long-term players who kind of idle around is very hard, because you have to have a new tutorial about all the things which changed by that time, and that's horrid to maintain. And again, many companies then pick the easy route and say, let's rather spend that money to get new users instead of trying to re-engage that. And I think this is a mistake.
Have you seen any game make it the right way? I mean, like maybe adding a new tutorial or giving...
I haven't seen anything. There's the welcome bonus for idle players, like after 2 weeks absence, you're getting something, 3 months, but then players actually play on that. So they on purpose are away for 3 months to get that rewards, which is kind of really odd gaming thing. But I haven't seen a game doing that properly.
Neither. I just left Marvel Snap a few months ago, 2 months ago, and I can't go back. but I'm still collecting.
Yeah.
So you have a perfect example here.
Yeah.
Mariusz, you are more the data guy. So do you have any thoughts about re-engagement or?
I mean, of course, the market progress, heavily. Yes. So on one side, from marketing perspective, engagement became way easier than it used to be. Yeah? Of course, the challenge is around, on one side, how to understand incrementality of such activities, because you can actually, buy a lot of users, and in many cases, this, cost per engagement will be lower on those users because in some way they know the game, know the brand, and of course, from that perspective, it can be easier. But of course, like always, the challenge is about incrementality, and so this is like right now, I think like a lot of discussion in the companies is okay, to which extent this re-engagement could be, part of the product and part of the kind of the game itself, to which extent it just can be part of the marketing and growth activities, and again, I think it seems to me that it's bigger topic in case of core games, where actually that kind of incrementality it's a little bit higher, and then in you can even think about maybe moving some users who actually played that game many months ago because they were good players and so on. So for sure now it's way easier really to measure that, even from marketing perspective, because for example I see that there is quite a lot even going on, for example like geo experiments, where for example you do some intervention in one market and you do not that in other one, and then you compare, okay, what percentage of the users who I acquire via those re-engagement activities, for example, were incremental versus those who would come anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Good. You want to add something?
Of course. I wanted to segue in a social topic because, for example, in strategy games, as you said, that the retention is infinitely better for long-term players. So players stay, and those that stay, for them, social activities are absolutely crucial. And you do need to produce the content, you do need to create new features for them, but they self-engage. Basically, they go engage inside the game, outside of the game, in different chat rooms. I mean, they find a way, and they are setting objectives for themselves, and they're basically creating the game for themselves. So depending on the genre, you can you can build your game and your activities in a game depending on how the players are. If they want to play solo, you need to do it differently. But if it's like a strategy game or another game where they need to communicate constantly, you do need to give them these kind of ways to interact and engage and have fun together.
Maybe
Yeah.
Sorry, to add maybe one more thing. I think especially if we talk about this retention, so I see especially that the more core gaming we are talking about, the more often we need to look even differently by retention of users and retention of players, because those are two groups that you are trying to reach out differently, and in those some of those things are really related to those users, but some of them are just related to players, especially for this long-term retention.
I just wanted to add on top of what both of you said in terms of people getting engaged with some social features, and if you offer them something and then it's difficult to keep them. So this is something what I guess is the most difficult for me in terms of having a social features, is that some features are kind of effortless, like scrolling through other profiles, liking, commenting, chatting, and things like that. But when you ask a player to share something to social media, it's kind of like you're interrupting their private area, their environment. You're asking yourself into their world. And I noticed that people don't like to do that, and they don't do that unless they are incentivized. If you give them something, if you offer them something, they come, they share whatever, like Instagram, Facebook, they share the progress of the game, do whatever they want. But once you actually take this incentive from them, it's done. They won't use that. So I guess from social point of view, that's the only one tricky one. But I agree, 100% agree that it's definitely important.
Yeah, social is actually one of the most interesting things in games. So let's keep on that point. Do you think if we have a game where you have a lot of social integrations and interactions, and you have your friends there, you have your community, and you play with them, you know them. Maybe there are two questions in one. Should we or could we actually get the players out of the game with? And yeah, here is the question: with what? So why should I leave the game, or why should the user come to me? And second thing is, maybe we should put more emphasis on social. Can you take your take on it?
I try. So I would say it depends on the goal. What do you want to do? What is the reason for taking the user out of the app? Do you want to actually the user to share, for example, in our case, share a look to social media, just so that they kind of promote the brand and their friends come in? So for example, let's say that you have a whale and the whale shares the look and the whale has whales on their Instagram. So maybe that's a cheap acquisition. Maybe it's worth at this point. But otherwise, I'd say that this is actually a discussion that is worth having.
No, I agree. There's one thing where you abuse, it's not abuse, in a positive way, your user to do user acquisition for you by sharing on other social media. And if they incentivize, they do that, they do it to get the stuff. They don't do it to actually, get your users. But for me, social is actually to keep the users. So social engagement is as important as the game's engagement. So there's a phase in the game where the game becomes natural to him, like a hobby, where the social retention is much more important because he won't leave the game because of all the cool people in the game. He might say, this feature sucks, that hero, I haven't drawn a legendary since 2 weeks, I might leave that game, but his friends are kind of, there, and he having fun chatting with him and so on. That's important. So I think it's more or less putting cool social features and stuff into the game itself than to actually try to get him out of the app. Because the secret is that if you're not playing, you're not paying. It's very easy. So when you take him out of the app, he shares on Facebook, and he suddenly sees a message of a girl he always liked. He's suddenly busy chatting with her instead of playing your game. And you're like, oh, no, that went wrong. So we more or less try to not distract our user to actually go out of the app. We want to keep him in the app as long as possible.
With the social features as well, with all the interactions and between two users.
Well, the most important thing is chat.
Okay.
Have chat in all your games, by default. Whatever game you're doing, have chat in there. It's very easy. It's like 2 days' work. And then you add to it private messaging, friends list, and all of that other things, And at some point, there are full-blown social media adaptions available in some of the games. Look at the Asian games. They're completely crazy with this. They have thousands of emojis. They have, chat rooms just to talk about whatever. And it's completely crazy. They're going overboard, but it might come to us as well. But yeah, I think we should put more work into the social features into the game, because this is where the retention will be, like mid-game, very important.
Could you give us an example, besides maybe Genshin Impact, which is the most known?
Well, what you do is that you're downloading the APK, or there are app stores on Google where you can download Asian games and play them. And just go to the charts and play, even if you don't understand what they're saying, but just look at these games. And you will see stuff you have never seen before in games. And we know that they're like 5 years ahead of us in many features, so that will come to us as well. I can't even pronounce the game, so.
I can give you examples. I mean, as he said, though, it's almost any Asian game, but you can even go to AFK Arena. I mean, it's like a westernized RPG, but created in, Asian market. And they have, it's like a kind of a web page inside the game, and that's where they do it as a social media sort of feed, and you just go, and they do it like on a routine basis. Even if there is nothing like groundbreaking, but they still post there, and they make you do go there. Sometimes they give you rewards, sometimes they incentivize, but you never really leave the game. I mean, I cannot say that I appreciate the look of some of those web pages. You have to read a lot, but that's just the way the consumers of those games are used to it, right? I also think that it's not a very good practice to want players to leave the game for the reasons that the guys have underlined, because it is hard for you to motivate them once they're there somewhere to, okay, oh yeah, I need to come back, but oh, maybe my child wants me to do something right. So you need to find these kind of ways how we can be seamless. And when I was talking about Forex, I wasn't saying that we are incentivizing them to go on Discord, or not really. I mean, they're going because they're so engaged. I mean, they're putting alarms in the middle of the night to engage in events together because it's a group activity. And if you miss it, you're out of the team. So it's like the hardcore level of the social is so crazy there that it's not comparable to other games.
Do you have a number for us? How many users are disengaged?
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to share any numbers.
Okay.
Maybe one more point. I think it's quite important in those features to really remember about this engagement ladder. Yeah. So I think it's not common that you bring the engagement ring for the first date. Yeah. And I think it's too often it happens that in the games that you do not think, okay, what I kind of require from the user in terms of social posting, in terms of recommendation, posting to the friend. And right now, I think there are so many good data tools available that actually help you even to understand, okay, if you compare the average user versus the users who are more likely to post, okay, when it happened, was it happening after they visit the game 5 times during the 3 days? Or maybe it's too early. Yeah? So I saw quite a few, for example, games doing a lot of experiments about this review API. Yeah, it's that it's asking about how to rate the game, but doing it at the right time, not too early because you don't know the game that, but not too late because you just got bored. And so I think doing this, remembering that okay, there is some data that can help you to understand to which users maybe you should push specific features and specific ask earlier to which a little bit later. I think will help you to really adjust that to the ways people value those things.
Okay. I have a technical question. How much time do we have? Okay, then one last question, and then we go to the Q&A. So we see, at least on mobile, that there are less and less big games coming out. So there are a lot of big games that people play. So guys, do you expect that there will be less games because people, just play longer this big 4X games, or do you think we will go in a go back in time where people still play?
I mean,
mid-sized games.
I think in some way it's happening already, not heavily, but I look at such data quite regularly. Just recently I looked, for example, at Uptopia. Yeah, I can of course share the internal data, but even their data is, for example, showing that if we compare, I think February 2023 and April, in February there was around 12,000 games added to the Google Play. In April, it was around 7,000. Yeah, so I think again it's happening. Of course, not to the extent that you have no new game, but I think more and more actually companies, even just recently, Playtika mentioned that in their earnings report that it's actually harder and harder for them to create new games. So it's actually you have more and more companies on one side focusing on something that works for them already. And okay, how to actually make it working better, maybe adding new content, maybe just extending the audience, maybe just trying to casualize a little bit more the core experience, or maybe trying to add a little bit more experience to the casual stuff. And that's I think what's happening already.
Yeah, I said in my earlier talk that the middle ground is dying. So either you're targeting niche very fast, or you're doing these mega productions, going worldwide. And there are less games being released. If you look at the data in a way that, let's get rid of all the hyper-casual stuff, because that's kind of cheating to put them inside. If you look at that data, and you take the top percentile, how many of the high-end games are coming out, it's less and less. And then if you look at the core games, it's the same thing. So there are less games because the effort to make a good game which might survive the mobile market is harder and harder, meaning that you need either longer time or more money or larger teams, and all of that is really tough.
Especially because the top charts are usually the same games, right?
I don't care about the charts. I care about how much money do we make each month to be profitable. That's the only number you should care. Because you cannot compete with a Genshin Impact. Sorry, you can. So how much money do you need to make your game profitable, that the team is happy and the company happy? So that's basically your bottom line. And it doesn't, and for every genre, that chart position is different. In the RPG chart, it's like place 500. In the strategy chart, it might be place 200. In some other ones, it's different. So.
Okay, cool. Good. So we ended here to get the QA session, right? Okay, thanks, guys.
Round of applause just to break the silence. Time for your questions, for your voice in the discussion. Let's start back in the room.
Hello. So I have a question regarding the social aspects of the game. You said that it's not good to move player outside of the app, but some teams don't really have a budget or resources to do an in-game chat right now. What would be like features that would you suggest that we would utilize Discord for, like to be as profitable as possible, but not really making players disengage from the app as much?
Okay, if you think it's too expensive to put a chat into your game, you should reconsider that. It's one programmer 2 days and you have chat in your game, besides the UI stuff on top. Real-time chat is very different than Discord. Discord is where your core users talk about your game lovingly with other people all day long. In-game chat is for every user where they see, hey, there are other people who are playing this game who can help me. And if they enjoy it, hey, I might enjoy it as well. It's very important that they see there are other people in the world playing this and talking about stuff. So two different social targetings are here active. If your programmer is not able to plug in photon chat into your game within 2 days, you might reconsider giving him the task. Okay.
Who else? This is your moment. Oh, front row, sorry.
Okay, so there is a lot of talking about adding the chat, yeah, but one thing is to add that and another one topic is to moderate that. So yeah, exactly. So that's the problem. How you, all of you go to that, yeah? Are you like buying the separate team to like maintain that? Because I know it's going to help pretty quickly if you don't moderate anything.
Depends on scale. At the beginning, you don't care, but if you have success, you can afford to fix it. So put in moderators from the community. Hire a community manager who actually organizes the moderators. All of that, standard practices. So you scale with success. In the beginning, if you don't have success, you don't care because there are just kind of 100 people in the chat. So
yeah, but how to find this moment when you know that we are going
your community will tell you.
Yeah.
Really, the community will shout, there are these assholes in the chat, help. And you say, oh, it's time to moderate. Yeah. It's
okay.
Yeah, I was looking mesmerizingly at the microphone. I mean, there are some maybe easy ways to implement. For example, you can do the banned words kind of dictionary for yourself, and then you do the star. Definitely, if you have a potential engaged community, you can, they will self-moderate it, but you need to have some kind of form of either kicking people out from the groups or, if it's not a common chat, obviously, or reporting them. So report will just, send you some kind of alert to your, whatever system that you're using. And you do have to have a team to support that, obviously. So it's not a free cost, but yeah, I think it's worth it. I mean, social, as we said, chats are important. Of course, if there is something to chat about, if it's just like, I don't know, I'm playing Candy Crush levels and we have a global chat in the game, usually it's not super necessary. Maybe you can do little chat rooms per mode, but yeah.
I think one more point, yeah. So I think right now there's so much discussion about AI, and in the understand, like we see that machines are getting better understand the language, yeah. So in this case, I think a lot of stuff will be happening in that space as well, because that's on one side, especially helping with the scale, and on the other hand, okay, there is something where you can just kind of put some input, create the model, learn by that model, and then have the outcome, yeah. So I think a lot of that will be happening, which of course should be especially interesting for those companies that cannot afford it at the time, because in some way it's kind of democratizing this gaming industry as well.
Okay. Anyone else about the other topics than chat in game? Okay.
Actually, I have one more question. Just for one of you, no worries. So, what type of qualities would you look? Hiring somebody who designs stuff that is, that's will stay forever, basically. So, is it more looking at people that understand social, mathematics, or just like games or whatever? Who would like to say something? I'm very interested in who to hire.
I might say, but this is just my perspective, that I would hire someone who understands the business. Like the game, but the business and earning money as well.
I think I would hire someone who actually was himself deep down into a community-driven game for a long time, like played World of Warcraft for 10 years or whatever. And then, of course, the central mind to actually objectively describe what the hell happened to me that I played this damn game for 10 years. If he can replicate some part of that, no.
Let's say I work with marketing, yeah. So, and I have quite a few really good people who are really good in marketing, and they are from philosophy. They studied philosophy, and they're really good, yeah. So I think right now is changing in the direction the way you can really be really good in something if you really love it, and that's what is really changing towards game creation as well, yeah.
I agree that we started hiring more and more people to specific roles from different industries, but if I would be hiring for a game designer role, and I'm not talking about junior and associate level, so someone mid and senior level, I would be looking for people that understand system design, because in free-to-play games it's essential, and you need to also love it. I mean, people that come and say, well, I don't really like free-to-play games, they're evil and everything, like, okay, well, that's probably not the right place for you. So, and system design is about how can you design a scalable system, so everything we were talking about forever games, well, basically all of these things should be there.
Great. Paweł,
reminds me of the interview process, because whenever a designer applies, I ask him, can you show me your phone and what games you have on it? And that tells you a whole story about his motivation to do free-to-play games.
I get your point. I get your point.
Okay. I think that we will have still a few minutes just to interact with our speakers during the break. So right now, please join me thanking them for this panel discussion.
Thank you.